What's good, everyone? This is Mikerotastraphy here, and today I want to give you a special video today on Marvel Rivals. Today is a little bit of a unique video because not many people really talk about it that much, but it is obviously apparent now in Season 2 of Marvel Rivals that there are a lot of different mechanics that's within everybody's kit or within certain characters of the roster. Therefore, I want to kind of go over the overview of what different mechanics are currently present in Marvel Rivals and kind of what it signifies of how future characters might look like when they are released based off of what mechanics are currently present or any new ones that might be introduced in the future based on what's currently around. Kind of what I want to get at is when the game first started, there's only really like certain basic mechanics that either affects yourself or the enemy players when you play the games in terms of buffs and debuffs, and there's like basic shielding. But now there are certain unique mechanics that acts like a debuff but only happens either on an internal level or external level. And then there's different types of shielding involved that might reflect or block certain projectiles but not block certain melee moves. Even though like certain moves might look like projectile, it's still considered like a melee move. Therefore, that kind of builds a misconception of like what can be blocked and what can't not be blocked, so on and so forth. Those are the mechanics I'm talking about today, and that's kind of what I want to try to address, so that, you know, for you trying to play certain characters and you want to like get good at a certain character, if you understand the mechanics that certain character can bring to the table in terms of like their kit, their ultimate, their passive abilities, it's better that you can best understand how to best play with that character, either in quick play matches, competitive matches, or even tournament play. So without further ado, let's dive right into the scope of the discussion. So as I mentioned, these type of mechanics could come in forms of either buffs, debuffs, or types of shielding. I'll start with the shields first because that's a little bit more straightforward. As it basically states, there are certain characters in this game that could shield themselves and other characters from uncommon damage, but those type of shields might reflect in different ways. For instance, Doctor Strange and Magneto's shield, they can pretty much block any type of projectiles. So anything that is fired from like Iron Man, Winter Soldier, those type of characters that shoot projectiles, they can block with ease. What kind of differentiate Magneto from Doctor Strange from a mechanical standpoint is the type of shield that they use. Magneto's shield has infinite HP, but it's a time duration shield. So the mechanic behind it is you can fling your shield up and you'll pretty much be invulnerable towards anything in front of you, but once that timer is up, then you're susceptible to yourself and to the teammates behind you too. Whereas for Doctor Strange, his shield is on an HP mechanic. So basically, once that HP goes to 0, then his shield technically breaks, and then you have to go on cooldown to have the shield start building back up again and before you can use it. Another character that shares that similar mentality is Invisible Woman, where she can prop a shield up that has an HP pool, but her shield can heal her allies and herself, but it has a smaller HP pool, so it's easier to break, but it follows the same mechanic lifestyle. Once it breaks, it goes on cooldown, and you have to wait for it to come off cooldown in order for you to use it again. So those type of shields are pretty straightforward, easy to understand. Other characters that use a type of shield in this game would be Emma Frost, who is brand new in this game as of Season 2.0, but her shield is a little bit similar to Sigma from Overwatch, where you can cast your shield however far you hold on to the button. That's her similarity to Sigma from Overwatch, but her shield is also an HP pool, so she shares the same mechanic lifestyle as Doctor Strange and Invisible Woman. Once it breaks, it goes on cooldown, and you have to wait for it to charge all the way back up to full HP before you can start using it again. And with her shield, if you cancel it or if you reapply it, there's a 3-second cooldown. So that's another part of her mechanic that you just gotta keep in mind for. But it acts as a shield where it blocks any oncoming projectile damage and also like particle beam too. Like her own primary fire or Scarlet Witch's primary fire that shoot those little laser beams. I'm gonna call it particle beams in terms of this video. It's not really considered a projectile, but it still gets blocked by the shields. Now, there's a third type of shield that is in this game, and this is where things start to get unique, and that is the absorbing shield. So this type of shield basically absorbs oncoming projectiles into a special effect, and this is unique only for Magneto so far in this game, where when he casts his ultimate, any projectiles that is traveled through this giant sphere that he creates, he absorbs it into his meteor and he gains power from it. With his absorbing mechanic, the more projectiles you absorb, the more powerful his meteor becomes. However, it does go up to a certain threshold. Once he absorbs up to 800 damage, or that meteor goes up to 100%, it self-destructs. So that's the caveat to that special shield mechanic, but it still acts like a shield because it's absorbing uncommon projectiles instead of blocking it. The only thing he cannot absorb, obviously, is melee attacks or particle beam attacks. So he can be susceptible to damage from like Emma Frost or Scarlet Witch, who shoots those laser beams at him. He can be damaged by that if he is not careful, but any other type of projectile, he can absorb it. The only type of projectile that is very unique in this game, but is not considered a projectile, is Moon Knight's ultimate. Even though it shoots Hand of Khonshu from a circular area down to the ground, even though it kind of looks like projectile, it's considered actually a melee attack, because I've tested it before with my brother while playing as Magneto. He cannot block it nor absorb his ultimate. Therefore, Moon Knight's ultimate is considered a wide range AoE melee attack because he can't absorb or block it. So that's a unique mechanic tailored to Moon Knight that bypasses every other shielding mechanic in the game. And that's kind of why I want to talk about the mechanics in this video, because I don't think a lot of people kind of like puts two and two together, just how these certain mechanics work in this game and how like certain characters can just get away with their abilities or their ultimates that other characters just can't, because their mechanics is just especially unique to them that bypasses the traditional standard of how like a shielding mechanic works. And that's what I'm explaining about the shielding. Another person that has a unique mechanic that bypasses shield is Spider-Man's ultimate. I've tested that out, and I come to find out that you can't shield or absorb Spider-Man's ultimate, even though he shoots all those little webs in a circular area, and eventually if you get hit enough, you become CC'd. I can't block from it, nor can I absorb any of those web shots from Spider-Man during that ultimate. Therefore, when Spider-Man casts his ult, that is also considered a wide range AoE melee attack that the game doesn't tell you, but it's still a special mechanic unique to Spider-Man that he can bypass the shielding traditional mechanic standard. Now there's a third type of shielding mechanic in this game that certain heroes can perform, and that's called a construct shielding mechanic, which is basically they just create like a special wall or a special object that serves as a structure that can still block oncoming damage, and they have their own like special HP. The prime example of this matter is Groot. One of his special abilities is he can just basically conjure up walls around him that does different effects. So he has an iron wall that is just that longer gray, is that long wall that, so as long as it's up and he is within that vicinity, anytime him or his allies does damage to the enemy heroes, he gains an overshield. But it's still a wall mechanic that can block incoming projectiles or particle beam damage or even melee damage too, because it's a construct. So it basically obscures the line of sight of enemy heroes and serves as a wall and blocks pretty much all types of damage. But it comes at a cost of an HP pool. Once it runs out of HP, then it breaks. Groot's smaller wall acts like the same case, but is more on the offensive side, whereas as long as Groot does damage to an enemy hero and that enemy hero is nearby one of those smaller walls, it will lash out special vines at that enemy hero to deal damage. So it's more like an offensive wall, but it still is treated like a construct mechanic where it can block any type of oncoming damage, but it has a small HP pool. Once it depletes, it breaks. So those are the 3 types of shielding that is currently in the game. You have the standard shield that is split between time base and HP base. Then you have an absorbing shield that is unique to Magneto currently in this game. And then you have a construct shield, which is tailored to the likes of Groot that he can perform in this game. The type of mechanic that is currently in this game now, and I wanted to bring it up because it's starting to become more and more unique and robust the more heroes that we're starting to get, and that is the terms of buffs. And what I've noticed in this game is that when it comes to the buffs and debuffs, the developers are treating the buffs and debuffs that each hero can bring to the table as both internal and external buff or debuffs. Basically where I'm getting at is, let's say that you are a Black Widow and you're sniping people from afar, and you have an ally Rocket Raccoon and an ally Mantis. Now the ally Mantis, she has a special ability where she can give you an external attack buff for X amount of percentage, so that during that duration your attack is increased by X amount. Whereas Rocket Raccoon, he has an ultimate ability that basically gives you the same thing. It's an external buff that boosts your attack power for X duration for an X amount. In this example, since Mantis and Rocket Raccoon both can give you an external buff because you're not doing it to yourself, those buffs should stack. That's basically how that's worked out. However, if you are a character that you can buff yourself and then you receive the same type of buff from a different person, then theoretically those buffs should stack. Basically what I mean is, like, if you're a Mantis player and you give yourself an attack buff, and let's say Rocket Raccoon casts his ultimate, then your attack buff should stack with his attack buff because it's coming from 2 different sources. And in most RPG games, those type of mechanics usually works because those are treated as 2 separate special buffs. Whereas if you can buff yourself internally and you get buff from an external source, then those buffs should stack, whether they stack multiplicatively or additively. Either way, it should stack together because it's coming from 2 different sources. Another example would be damage mitigation. Now that we have Emma Frost in this game, she can transform into her diamond form, which grants her an internal buff that reduces incoming damage from 15%. But last season, we also got the Thing, which one of his abilities is whenever he leaps into one of his ally heroes, he can grant himself and that ally hero a 30% damage reduction for a short duration. So in my theory crafting from my advanced guide with Emma Frost, link down below, I mentioned that theoretically those buffs should stack together because those are coming from 2 separate sources. I'm going to be testing this out this week, and once I find out the answers, I'll definitely let you guys know in a separate short video to kind of help confirm it. But theoretically, those are 2 separate sources. Therefore, Emma Frost should be able to get a huge damage reduction from her diamond form and the damage reduction from the Thing because they should stack, theoretically speaking. Now again, whether it's additively or multiplicatively, I'll find that out once I do some testing, and once I find the answers, I'll let you guys know. But that's another example of how certain buff mechanics work in Marvel Rivals. The third type of mechanic that I want to talk about in this video is the mechanic of crowd control, or CC for short. Basically, in this game, there's been quite a few characters, mainly support heroes, that has some form of a CC move in their kit that allows themselves to protect themselves against oncoming divers or oncoming enemy heroes that are trying to shut them down, and you can just use your ability that is a CC move to stop them from doing whatever they're doing. Whether it's Luna Snow's Ice Blast that you can freeze someone on the spot for set duration, or it's Mantis's Sleep Bomb where you can put someone to sleep for a long time, but they can wake themselves up if someone hits that purple entity behind them. Those are different forms of CC moves. But like I said, other has forms of CC in their kit. For instance, Squirrel Girl, she's a DPS hero, but she can CC heroes with her Squirrel Blockade and with her team up ability with Spider-Man with the Web Acorn. So it's not just pertaining to just support heroes that has CC capabilities. Other classes can do that as well. There's at least one hero in every class that has some form of a CC built into their kit. But the reason why I want to talk about it today is because that now that we have a robust roster now, and we're going to continue to get more characters throughout the future, I want to explain the mechanics of CC and CC immunity so that you can understand how certain heroes are interrupted when they are attacked by a CC move compared to when a hero gives themselves a CC immune buff, how they are basically invulnerable to any type of CC capabilities for a set duration. But first, since I talked about crowd control moves and what they do, I can talk about CC immunity real quick. There are certain heroes, whether they cast an ability or cast an ultimate, they give themselves a special aura, which basically gives themselves CC immunity. You don't see an icon over their head, you don't see like a special text, a special name, but it's something that is implied in game when they cast their ability or ultimate. For instance, when Luna Snow or the Punisher cast their ultimate, they get a yellow glow to them briefly before like the ult goes off. That means that they are now officially a CC immune. So it doesn't matter what type of move you throw at them, they won't be stunned, they won't be frozen, they won't be put to sleep while they're in their ultimate form. And it's good for them because, like for Luna Snow, her main job is to keep her allies alive. So for her to be CC immune, she doesn't need to worry about anybody interrupting her, so as long as she doesn't die. Which there are some heroes that can just out DPS her healing and shielding capabilities, such as Iron Man or Scarlet Witch. So those heroes are still there to shut her down. She's not completely invincible, but she's at least invulnerable towards CC mechanics. Same thing with the Punisher. He does high amount of DPS, still one of the highest DPS in the game per second, besides the one-shot nukes like Iron Man or Scarlet Witch, but he is vulnerable to oncoming damage. So one way to offset it is that they give himself that CC immunity buff when he glows. So if you're playing as the Punisher or you're fighting against the Punisher, if you notice that when he casts his ult and he's starting to say his words, and you just pay attention how his hitbox starts to get that yellow glow before he starts firing, that means that he's now officially CC immune. So it's best not to try to shut him down using buffs or CC control, crowd control. You can only shut him down just by out DPSing him. But that also means that there are some heroes, when they cast their ultimate, they don't get that glow. That means they are very susceptible to crowd control. For instance, the Scarlet Witch or Spider-Man, even though they recently got buffs where they can receive shield, so they can have a little bit more survivability so they don't get DPS down so fast, they are still susceptible to CC moves. Which, for instance, if you are playing as Penny Parker and you see a Scarlet Witch or a Spider-Man using their ultimate, all you gotta do is shoot your electromagnetic web and you just basically interrupt them because it's considered a CC move. It interrupts their ultimate move. Another example is Emma Frost. When she turns into her diamond form, she can do her special grab attack that she can basically shut anybody down. So as long as they don't have a passive that they're immune to crowd control, or they don't have that yellow aura buff during their ultimate, she can pretty much grab anybody and shut them down for like a brief second of whatever they're doing. So that is another type of mechanic that is very important in this game, which is understanding which character either gives themselves a yellow aura that makes them CC immune during their ultimate, or which character gives himself a special shield which makes them tankier from oncoming damage. It's best to understand which character does what so that you can best prioritize certain heroes that favors your matchup. So like if you're playing a character that favors crowd controlling a lot of heroes, then it's best not to try to crowd control someone that is easily can become immune to your crowd controlled moves, because then you're putting yourself in a disadvantage. But if you can CC other heroes during a team fight, well then you can still provide value that way. But that's pretty much everything I want to explain for today's video. If you have any questions about like how some of these mechanics are broken down into detail, let me know in the comments below, and then I can try to answer as best as I can. And I can even do some like special posts or special YouTube shorts to kind of go over some of the questions that you might still have based on the mechanics in Marvel Rivals. Obviously, when we get more and more heroes, the game is going to become much more complicated as time goes on, and that's why I want to kind of get this video out now so that we can try to have a general understanding of how some of these mechanics work, so that when a new hero does drop into Marvel Rivals, that either A, provides a robust mechanic that probably is similar to some of the other mechanics we've seen, or provides a brand new mechanic that we've never seen before, it's easier for us to discern what that mechanic is, what it can do, and more importantly, what value that hero can provide to the entire roster when either you're playing as that new character or you're playing with a teammate that has that new character. So if you enjoyed this video, definitely don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. It definitely helps me out with the algorithm so that I can get my videos pushed out to more people who are playing Marvel Rivals, so that they can have a better understanding on how they can improve their own play style and improve their capabilities to rise through the ranks of competitive play. And definitely leave a comment down below. I definitely take the time to read through every comment and respond during my free time. I do appreciate you guys for taking the time to watch the video today. This is Mikerotastraphy. I'll catch you guys later.